So imagine that you are walking down the street. Someone stops you, and the first thing that they say is, "Where is the bank?" How would that make you feel? Surprised? Nervous? Maybe scared? Who is this person? Why do they think that I know where the bank is? And are they going to hurt me if I don't tell them? Now imagine the same situation, but this time the person says, "Excuse me, do you know where the bank is?" This person is asking for the same information, but they probably seem like a much nicer person. This is because they said "excuse me," they spoke in a softer tone, and they used what we call an indirect question. Instead of just asking the question, they started with, "Do you know?" I'm Teacher Mike. I help adults like you learn real English that they can use in their daily lives. Today, I'm going to make sure that you understand why and how to use indirect questions. Again, an indirect question is when we have a question, but instead of just asking the question, we start with a question phrase. For example, "Do you know?" We use indirect questions because they help to make our questions sound more polite. We often use them when we are talking to people who we don't know, especially if we are asking them to help us with something. If you walk up to someone on the street and the first thing you say is, "Where is the bank?" some people will find that rude. And it's also weird because they might not know where the bank is. Now let's look at how we make indirect questions. Again, we start with a question phrase. For example, "Do you know?" "Do you have any idea?" "Could you tell me?" "Would you happen to know?" Or, "May I ask?" If your question has a question word, such as who, what, where, when, why, or how, that comes after the question phrase. So if your question is, "Where is the bank?" you might start with, "Do you know where?" Then you take "is the bank" from your question and you change it to make it look like an answer. The bank is. Do you know where the bank is? If your question is, "How old are you?" you might start with, "May I ask how old?" Then you take "are you" and change it to make it look like an answer. You are. May I ask how old you are? If your question is, "When are we leaving?" you might start with, "Do you have any idea when?" Then take "are we leaving" and change it to make it look like an answer. We are leaving. Do you have any idea when we are leaving? And sometimes we use a statement instead of a question phrase. For example, "I don't know." "I would like to know." Or, "I was wondering." So if the question is, "Where did she study?" you might start with, "I'd like to know where." Then you take "did she study" and you change it to make it look like an answer. She studied. I'd like to know where she studied. And we can also do all of this with yes/no questions. But for yes/no questions, we usually use if or whether. So if the question is, "Are you British?" again, start with the question phrase or a statement, and then add if or whether. For example, "I'd like to know if," or "May I ask whether?" Then take "Are you British?" and change it to make it look like an answer. You are British. I'd like to know if you are British. Or, "May I ask whether you are British?" In all of the previous examples, we were asking for information, but we can also use indirect questions to make requests. And when we do this, we are usually using an indirect question to tell the other person that we know that they might not be able to help us, and it's okay if they say no. When we do this, we often start with a question phrase such as, "Do you think you could?" "Is there any chance you could?" "I was wondering if you could," or "Would it be possible for you to?" Then you just add the verb. For example, "Do you think you could help cook dinner this evening?" "Is there any chance you could lend me a few dollars?" Or, "Would it be possible for you to pick me up from the airport tomorrow?" So yeah, that's why and how we make indirect questions. For more videos like this one, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.